I called you up because I saw the press release this morning. Obviously, it's kind of a mixed bag, it seems to me. And I think, I'm wondering how the market will react. I mean, what's your take on it? For instance, the first number I saw there was, production isn't quite what you thought it would be.
Well, I think, at the end of the day, we thought Q3 might be a bit like Q2. And I said, as I've written in the press release, the reality is the pandemic probably had sort of it had bigger teeth in Q3 than it did in Q2 in Brazil. And that was probably good for us because it allowed us in Q2 to really prepare ourselves a little better for Q3. I think if we hadn't, we could have had a really tough time in Q3. And I don't think the result in Q3 is that bad at all. All right, we thought we might be able to achieve more than 8,000 ounces. We didn't quite get there. But at the end of the day, pretty credible result, I think. And, I'd like to think that, people, investors, will be pleased the way we've gone about this. We've managed to keep operations fairly normal. And we'll all remember that going into 2020, we were really positioning the company to really take advantage of our resource and reserve, etc. We installed the ore sorter. We'd started drilling to really grow the resource because the plan always was to really build up the mining rate and actually have a much greater mining rate than plant rate. And the idea was we were going to overmine, produce a nice big stockpile and feed that ore sorter to make sure the best 500 tons per day in our plant constrained operation would be the result. Unfortunately, the pandemic came along. No one could see that. We had to suspend drilling, but we kept going. And the fact that we actually did position the company did mean that we actually have been able to maintain a decent level of production out of the mine, not as much as we wanted, but a decent level of production through the mine. And I'll say this, the plant has never run out of ore. That plant has never run out of ore. We've got pretty close, but we are in the situation now where we are pretty much producing out the mine what the plant can take. So we've lost that facility to cherry pick the grades. We always overmined, had more mine capacity than plant capacity, which allowed us to high grade, pass them through the ore sorter and feed the plant with a better grade. We've lost that. Why have we lost it? Well, during the pandemic, we had to reduce numbers. We had to reduce some of all the non-core stuff. It did have an impact in the mine. We had to simplify the mine. Instead of having, say, 8 multiple faces going at any point in time, we had to simplify and reduce it to have a low operation, which meant we became a little bit of a hand-to-mouth type operation, and inevitably the grade suffered. But, we've maintained a grade of 5 grams. Okay, I know it's not 7 or 8 grams like we've had historically, but the 5 grams still makes money. Our cut-off grade's 2.5, and whilst it's not making the ounces that we would have liked, it's still made decent ounces.
Explain that to me, Mike. Do you mind if I just ask you a question there? Because I get the fact that planning from 2019 meant that the impact of COVID, which is unforeseen for everyone, wasn't as impactful as it could have been. I get that. But why is the grade drop from the sort of 7s and 8s down to 5?
Right. Well, basically, what we have normally done historically with any vein mine, it doesn't matter what deposit you're working on, there's great variability and great erraticness in the resource and in the reserve. You never will know, like an open pit mine, know exactly what your tons and grade are going to be for the next 5 years. In a vein mine, you are almost on a day-to-day basis. You will get surprises, good ones, bad ones. That's the way it goes. So the way you insulate yourself from all of that is you actually have more faces available at any point in time to make sure, okay, when this face goes bad, you've got another one over there that's okay, and vice versa. You've always got this flexibility, I like to call it optionality, as you're on your day-to-day mining. So our strategy has always been, and with the ore sorter, we ramped up our strategy, was to actually produce out of the mine something like 750 tons per day of ore. And out of that 750 tons per day, we would find 500 tons per day at a higher grade. We would essentially eliminate low grade and waste out of the lowest 250 tons per day will be set to one side and stockpiled, and we would take the cream. Obviously, what's happened with COVID, we've obviously had to, in the pandemic, we actually had to reduce that optionality, reduce some of those faces, simplify the operation, smaller workforce, and say, instead of mining all these different faces, we're just going to mine 2 or 3. And that's fine until you obviously get some bad days. But now we basically are in a situation where we're hand to mouth and we eat what we kill. And sometimes when the grade goes down to 4 or 5 grams, well, that's it. That's what we've got. We can't suddenly go somewhere else and get 10 grams to compensate. So we're in that moment at the moment. But what can I say? Those ounces that we haven't been mining are still there in the mine, and they're for the future. So what we're doing now is we are rapidly accelerating our drilling. We're building up our development rates, and we'll be back to where we were planning to be in the first half of 2020 in 2021.